So, is art and its poetry and the imagination world, that is the world below the surface, one way to hold us together, to gain peace of mind? Has this anything to do with the dapple future that Paul Allen mentioned? The necklace, as I see it, of dapple futures and dappled oases going forwards that we can connect to, such as we saw in the glory of Abe. Is this a place of ecological awareness and sanity, a place where we need a new iconography to inform old belief structures with new stories, myths and poetry? And where do we find these stories? Well, I've been researching Agent Orange and how that disaster continues, and how the Admiral who soon set it off then had a deformed child, or his own son was impregnated with poison, and then his child was brain damaged. And it was a story of kind of hubris, really. And I was asking James Flood, in fact, Malcolm's friend down here, what stories we could find that would actually hold this. And she talked to me about the Greek story of what I call Eric the Sick, because I can't pronounce it properly. But it's about his Erysichthon, the man who was arrogant and impious and who dared to fell timber in the sacred grove of Demeter. And as a punishment, Ceres, the goddess of harvest, sent famine to dwell in his entrails, so that he was continuously tormented with an insatiable hunger. He ate of all the food in sight, and he sold all his possessions to buy more and more, and still he was not satisfied, until finally he began to assuage his raging hunger by devouring himself, gnawing his own limbs, and continuing his desperate quest for food, until he had consumed himself entirely. Now that seems quite a good parallel, or very used. In fact, Ted Hughes also spotted it in his Tales from Ovid, again thanks to Malcolm. And just the last verse of this brings home the point about how the power of the image and the reality of the fact is contained within a very tight image. The famine was in her father, but none of it was enough. Whatever he ate maddened and tormented that hunger to angrier, uglier life, the life of a monster, no longer a man, and so on. At last, the inevitable, he began to savage his own limbs, and there, at a final feast, devoured himself. Is that not what, to an extent, our culture is doing? So let's look at art. If art is, what do we mean by art? What is it? Where has it been? Where is it going to? Well, I believe that artists shift perception and they demonstrate imaginative possibilities. But I also believe that we need a new kind of art, because unfortunately, like so much else in our market-driven culture, art has been hijacked by money, celebrity, novelty and spectacle. It has been turned from a process into a product. The Spectator has come about over the last 200 years as a result of urbanization, imperialism, electronic technology, the media and all the pervading economy which generates false needs for passive consumers constipated with too much choice and alienated into political apathy. There is another way. I call it vernacular art. And this owes quite a lot to Clark Mackey, a Canadian, who's written a book called Random Acts of Culture, which has just been published, which deals with the kind of history of vernacular culture. Vernacular art, all those creative activities that people engage in daily, which we saw on AIM, and which gives meaning to their lives. We need to reclaim these for communities in the 21st century. We need to replace spectators with gatherings, congregations, and participators. In reclaiming art and community, people will create and celebrate in partnership, together with ceremonies for rites of passage, carnivals, cooking, gardening, building houses, telling stories, playing music and making life, enhancing participatory festivals. Now such work is context dependent, and I agree with those thoughts that we had from Ben Twist on Guernica. How often does a work of art really change behaviour? But what exactly do we mean by that? Ben said what we need, in fact, is to put it into a particular context. And I think this is what we need to claim, and not be hypnotised by the gatekeepers of culture. So the work I'm advocating, which is there all the time, really, just needs to be brought more to the fore. It needs to be supported, because we have in the centre now an institutionalised, bureaucratised form of a kind of art, which is brilliant. But there are other ways. And this work is context dependent. You have to participate. It's playful and improvised. Economically, it depends on a gift relationship, which can't be bought or sold. When you think about the blood transfusion service, and that is the most altruistic act, which we still have here, but we don't necessarily, blood is sold in the States, but it isn't here. So we are able to work together in such a gift relationship. It's a useful counterpoint to our doleful system of capitalist conscription. It's a time we replaced, it is time we replaced the banality of economic regeneration with the rejuvenation of the soul. So this is my plea. We go for art, but new art, a playful art that demonstrates what it is to be human, where consciousness is shifted to a realm of poetic resonance, a realm of visceral, sensual, aesthetic collaboration, a truly ecological poetry, one of love. And love is of connection, of choice, and of collaboration, where art is indeed a way of being and a mode of knowledge. And I'll finish with a couple of poems. One is one which I wrote a little while ago, and the way synchronicity works, and has actually worked a lot in this conference for me, is I arrive in the museum, and it's very, you come in the back entrance, and it's a very surreal entrance, and there, immediately in front of me, is a stuffed wolf. I've just written a poem about a wolf, and the last wolf in England, everybody has this story. It's the same wolf that keeps recurring. But we'll say that the last wolf in England is thought to have been killed on Humphrey Head, a finger of land that points into Morecambe Bay, opposite our beach house. The last wolf. After the Crusades, he killed the last wolf in England. One infidel is as good as another. So in Romantic Paradise, wilderness was anaesthetised. Children acquired Wordsworth goggles, lest blackthorns scrape their eyes, while nature was reduced to television size. Yet, ghost prints are on our lawn, and wilderness is in the wood, lurking in coughing fits of blood. The poetry and the facts can be scary, it can bring us down. We know that, but I don't think there's any point in pretending and ignoring. We have to face it. But I think we need some kind of songs or stories or poems which we must all start writing. We all can write. Because I've heard a few people in this conference say, you know, I'm not an artist. And please, that's propaganda. Everybody's an artist, everybody's creative. And we've been told largely by a rather peculiar educational system that only some people can create and some people are specialists, but it is not true. So I thought I wanted to write a poem about redemption, the kind of creation myth that's come out of this event, but one that will stay with us maybe as an example of one man transcending despair. It's called Taxidermist. In his grey tray of wings clipped from fallen birds, he sprinkles borax to mummify the jewels of goldfinch, blue-tit, thrush and hawk. With tweezers and sable brush, he plucks tufts and feathers, binds them with oiled cotton to filigrees of bone. Then, taking each filigree of bone, each with its tying of feathers, he places one over the